Hello, welcome everybody. I'm Kim Campbell, Editor-in-Chief at Circus Talk, News and Content. Thank you for attending our Pro Talk today. These Pro Talks are regular virtual live events about relevant topics led by industry influencers and experts. And these events are meant to give you the opportunity to gain new insights and meet fellow professionals and keep your career connection strong. I will now hand over the conversation to our moderators, Adrian Berry of Jackson's Lane and Flora Herberich, producer and project manager. Welcome and thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Adrian Berry, normally known as Aid, and I'm the artistic director of a venue in London called Jackson's Lane. I need to apologise to begin with because I have a very noisy cat, and he's called Rocky, and he appears very regularly during Zoom conversations and makes very loud noises. So if you hear anything untoward that sounds slightly squeaky and noisy, that's my first professional contribution to this this session. But I'm going to be talking about ways of pitching to venues and festivals and programmers, but I'm not going to be talking about the UK particularly. So I'm not going to talk about visas. I'm not going to talk about Brexit, but however, Flora is a little more experienced in this than me, but this is more about the approach generally of how you the information that is needed and the ways to talk to venues. This is where I'm going for it, which also I need to say it differs hugely from venue to venue. So the way that you talk to me at Jackson's Lane will be very different to how you talk to Stoa in Helsinki or the Barbican in London. So this is our perspective, but also a shared perspective from my many years of experience. And if Rocky does make an appearance, you can certainly meet him. Flora, if you're there in your car, can you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone. My name is Flora. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, apologies that you can't see my face right now. I am just leaving site. I'm actually producing a live event, which is quite amazing these times. So, it's a build of a circus tent is starting tomorrow, which is really exciting. So, but yeah, so I'm just going home from that. I have a sleepy toddler in the back of my car, so I hope he won't make an appearance either. But yeah, it's really lovely to be invited on this talk, and I think Adrian has some really useful things to share with you, and then it'd be really great to talk a little bit more in the Q&A. I think important is what Aid kind of said. There's no like, you know, this is how you do it and this is the recipe for success. There's, you know, there's so many different factors. There's many different, are you making a show from scratch, or are you touring a show that already exists? And, you know, there's so many variables. So it's really about getting to know people and getting to know each other. So really looking forward to being part of this session.
Thanks, Flora. And the reason I invited Flora is she's been working with us as a producer for about, how many years? 9, 10 years. So I'm from a venue perspective, and Flora, although works at Jackson's Lane off and on, represents many companies as a producer. So you're going to get the two perspectives. They might not always match up, but we'll see. And also just to say that there's a lot of variables in terms of the world at the moment about how you present work. You know, do you send PDFs? Do you do Zooms? Do you do pictures? So I'll touch on that, but this is also about how you present stuff in terms of, I guess, a tour pack. I also realise that people are at different stages. So some of the stuff I might be saying might be very basic, really basic, and you'll go, well, we know that, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I don't know what you all know. So, and it might be good to get a refresher. So I'm going to share my screen. Nice to see you all, by the way. Okay. It says whiteboard. Hold on. Okay, it's not letting me share my desktop. Let me see. Hang on. No? Kim, help me.
I see your desktop. I see.
Hang on. It's not showing the whole desktop. That's anything. So it's showing certain things. I've got whiteboard. Sorry about this, everyone. I've got whiteboard, Safari. Let's try that. Okay. Oh, that will do it. There we go.
Yay.
There we go. So I'm going to just talk you through some stuff on a kind of a presentation, and I'm going to show you some good examples and bad examples. And at the end, Jackson's Lane is we're pretty much the leading circus venue for the UK, but we're quite small as well. Our capacity is only 170, but we have a big international program. We take work to the Edinburgh Fringe. We tour work. We also support a huge amount of artists. So we kind of, what's the phrase, punching above our weight. I'm going to talk you through what we do, but at the end, I'm going to show you a video that we've just made because we're developing our building, a £5 million redevelopment, and we just made a circus film, 7 minutes long. I thought it'd be good for you to see it, but we'll do that at the end for those who want to stay on. So here we go. So pitching a show and introducing yourself, and Flora, just chime in whenever you want to. Ways to introduce yourself and approach venues and programmers. And I said I am going right to the very basics for this as well. So, oh, hang on. Excuse me a second. Single page.
Aid, if you like, you can switch back to your main image when you're talking, or do you want to share your screen?
Oh, I am sharing. Is it not sharing?
It's sharing the YouTube video.
Ah, that's not deliberate. This is going well. Hold on. What's happening, Kim? Sorry, is the video playing at the moment?
No, it's just showing a blank screen. I think it's the video you wanted to show at the end. Yeah.
Okay. Has that gone?
Yeah, back to you.
I'm not the most techno savvy, but okay. Have you got this? Can you see this? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're going to start with some do's and don'ts of approaching venues. And I mean, I'm going to sort of talk through these points, so I'm not going to do it verbatim, but I'll just kind of gloss over each one a little, and then maybe elaborate as well. So the first thing is about taking a personal approach. So taking a personal approach is, find the contact at the venue if you can. The one thing you shouldn't do is go in via an admin address or obviously not everybody's completely approachable. Not everybody has their email addresses on the websites. But if you can find some way of a personal approach, whether that's their email, and I'd say just be polite and be brief, and don't go in for the hard sell, which means don't just go in going, we want to bring your show to, they may have no knowledge about you at all. So the first thing is just to make a brief introduction. The second thing is don't cut and paste. So I get a lot of things going, dear Flora Herberich, for example, when it's sent to me, where you can say that they've basically gone scattergun and contacted a huge amount of venues and then forgotten to make all the changes in the things. And so they'll approach me and say, we're really interested in bringing your work to the South Bank Centre, which is like, well, that's great, fabulous. I'm sure you are, but we're Jackson's Lane. The third thing is if you can find a way of having a sort of an in with someone that knows them, or someone that knows both of you, or someone that they know that you can say, well, such and such recommended me from this venue. If you can find a way to actually have some approach which says, so someone comes to me and said, well, Steve Cowton at the Lowry suggested I get in touch with you. I know it's probably wrong that it needs that, but the point is that we get so many approaches I mean, hundreds throughout, you know, a week, 2 weeks, a month. And we sometimes need a little bit of verification or introduction to someone that might say, you know, talk to these people. And it's really hard, especially if you're a kind of an organization without a producer, or without, you know, that you're going in cold. And I think for myself, because we're a smaller organization, I tend to try and get back to everyone that I can. But I think if you go into bigger organizations, it's harder because it may just get lost and not responded to. So if you can find some common interest or some common connection in the approaches, that's it makes things might smooth your way in a little easier, is what I'm saying. I get messages that people find me on Instagram and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, and I don't know, Flora, do you get this as well? If she's there. No, she's not there. The people contact me through Twitter direct messages, they find me on social media, and it becomes really frustrating because it's not professional. It's slightly intrusive, and also because it's not your profession. You know, it's probably going to be a personal Facebook thing, a personal Twitter thing, a personal Insta thing. So I just say completely avoid doing that. And going back to the first point, don't write "Dear Programmer." Don't just, you know, don't find out the names of the people. Try not to just go through their contact form if you can. And sometimes that is hard to do. That is quite hard to do. Submission processes, we're quite relaxed, and I quite like meeting people and having a cup of coffee, but not everybody does. And if you're a bigger venue, there's going to be a formal process more than likely. So find out what the process is. Is it a formal application? Do they welcome having a chat? What is the best way of talking to the venues as well? And then the other thing is, just don't go straight in by sending a tour pack. Don't just go, we've got this show, we want to tour it to you. I mean, some venues might welcome that, but I prefer to have to learn a little bit more about the artists and the company, if possible at all. And the biggest one for me is researching the venue. So if you're and I'll probably talk about this a bit later, but if you've got a show that needs 13 meters depth, 11 meters height, and 27 rigging points, don't approach a venue that's got 6 meters height, 3 meters width, or whatever. You know, to make sure that you just at least check out the venues and do your research, basically. And then research, you know, invite them to see your work. Are they able to? I mean, it's difficult if you're in London, you invite people from Scotland, they're probably not always going to come down, but especially we're doing more streaming stuff now. Is there a way that you can share the work so they can actually see it if they don't know you? And I go to a lot of festivals, and I just put at the end, like Osh, Fear Taraga, Subcase, Montreal. And these festivals, if you're appearing at them or pitching at them, they tend to give the delegate information and the email addresses. So if they're going, you know, the reason they've shared this information is for you to drop them a line. And I put in blue there, buy them a coffee and a cake, because it you know, we like that. But do consider, you know, approaching them and saying, we've got this pitch at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. We hope you'd like to come. Would you mind meeting up? And but just invite them to see your work in whatever way you can do it. And then also the last thing is in this little section is be clear about what you're asking for. Do you want a gig? Do you want some advice? Do you want a residency? Do you want R&D time? There's no point in saying you want a show if it's not ready. You've got to be very transparent about when the work is available and what you're looking for. And, you know, I'm going with the process here about sending information, which is, I guess, via email more than anything. But of course, there's other ways of pitching, which I'll come on to in a second. Because I'm just looking at my own presentation at the moment. Kim, can everybody hear me? Just checking.
Yes.
Good, thank you. I feel like I'm talking into a void. Other things, is it funding dependent? So is it definitely going to happen, or is it waiting on money? So if you go, we're looking for a gig in February 2023, is it dependent on some money that's still to come in, or is it ready to go? So be transparent. Are you saying that getting something penciled would help you to get this money? Are you asking for a letter of support? So be very transparent and be very honest with the venues, that don't promise something that you can't deliver. And if you want to get their support, be again transparent about what support you need. Is it some space in kind? Is it a letter? Is it and in England we have the Arts Council funding process, where a letter of support and some funding in kind goes a long way to getting the money. I'm just going to see if Flora's here at the moment. Flora?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add to that? So.
Yeah, it's hard to know, I guess, because I don't know who's listening and whether everybody's from the UK or if people are quite international in this.
Mainly international, Flora.
Yeah, so it might be good to, you know, like how could people who have, like, you know, absolutely no idea or you know, don't have that many links. I think it's how would they make a first approach, or how could they invite you for a coffee if they don't live in the same country, for example?
Sure.
That's more a question, but yeah, you know, and I do think now with COVID, we've become more used to actually having streamings and recording things and stuff, so or having Zoom meetings. Is that something that you think is going to become more of a thing?
Yeah, I think the idea of a coffee or whatever, it doesn't have to be in person anymore. So the coffee and the cake we could do over Zoom. I guess when I'm talking about the festivals, I'm thinking physical and non-physical, that I've attended a huge amount over the last year, and I've still managed to meet up with artists and have a chat with them. And it's been, so for me at the moment, it doesn't matter which way. I think the same things should still apply from whatever country you're in. If we go down the Brexit, no, let's not go down there. Not until maybe the Q&As, and I still won't be able to answer. And I'll just put at the end, there are of course other ways to present your work: video pitch, live pitch, a showcase, a chat on Zoom, a coffee in person. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And in some cases, a formal application process. But I put here, though, we're going to look at a document or tour pack. So that's what we're going to look at now, which is a pack you can send to venues and programmers. But within that, you can have video links. You can have all the things that you want within it. And I think we still respond. The conversations and the Zooms and the meetings will come later, but there has to be the initial approach. So I receive these, and Tora produces these things. So this is about producing a tour pack and the kind of information. And this is not just about my venue. I know for fact this is what many venues will require, this information in whatever form it is. So how to make a production pack. So I said every venue will be looking for something different, will have an alternative programming approach or artistic policy. And it's extremely competitive, and of course it is. Maybe less so in the theatre world, but also in some ways more so, because there are less venues, certainly in our country, that program circus. And I said, what's important is you look professional and you're informative. So we're talking about a PDF document, essentially, or whatever format you wish to present it to us, you know, whatever it is. I still feel that you don't go straight in by sending this information. I think you need to have the gentle introduction first, to introduce yourself, to say, would you mind if we send this to you? I sometimes feel it's a bit too much if it's a company I don't know and it's suddenly like, we want to show, whereas we haven't even developed a relationship. And I use the rather glib analogy for Jackson's Lane, is that we're looking for a long-term relationship, not a one-night stand. And I still say that, as however incorrect it may be to say it. But let's look at a kind of a format. Basically, I'm going to show you also some examples of the good and the not so good, which I've got permission to show from both the companies, by the way. So I said size, 2 is probably too little, 10 is probably too much, if you're talking about sides of A4. And you need to think about how you approach with your cover image. And I've said, treat it like a poster for your show, something which they can go, well, I can imagine that being in my venue. Something which is visually led, something which has logos of your supporters, maybe a quote or two, but just something quite brief and clear, and something which promotes what you're doing. Of course, again, you've got to remember that not all the things you're promoting are going to be finished shows. They're not going to be complete shows. There might be requests for R&D, but there still has to be something which actually gets the interest of the venue or the programmer. Production, I've said, give a synopsis of the show. We get a lot of requests, tons and tons of requests. I will send this document to you, by the way. And there's also a chance for you to expand upon any quotes and reviews from peers, from other venues, from the press. It's a chance to show your images. It's a chance to show video trailers of either the work you're talking about or work that you've produced before. I just also said age guidance is good to know. Are you looking at younger family audiences? Are you looking at generic audiences? Are you looking at much more adult audiences, which is a selling point in itself in some ways. But this is the where you basically it's your sort of leading pitch. Your company, who are you? What's your history? How good are you? Again, reviews, quotes from other venues that have programmed you, other people that the people you're approaching might know. And I said the circus industry is smaller than you think. So we do talk to each other. And I will get a phone call from Steve at the Lowry, second time I mentioned him, going, who's this Bex Anson person, which he actually did. And then I will say, it does work that way as well, based on your experience. That we do talk. We're quite a close-knit world, both in terms of artists and in terms of venues and in terms of programmers. Biographies of artists is good. Very strong images are good. Be careful not to have too many things that are in a theatre with black backgrounds. There's only so many images you can have of an aerialist up a rope in a theatre. And as good as the work is, in a still image, it doesn't look great, or it looks quite generic. So think about conceptual approaches as well. Just things that lodge you into the brain of the people that you're approaching as well. But reviews, quotes, that they're all good. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? What's your track record? What's your history? And then tech info is very important, but don't go overboard because it can scare people off. It can scare, certainly in the UK, me and Flora have realised that a lot of venues don't actually know what their own technical capabilities are. They go, we can't do that, but they probably can. If you can support venues in that way. Of course, if you're doing a hand-to-hand show with acrobats, say it, because there might be an assumption that because it's circus that there's going to be some rigging needed. I know it might sound crazy, but people do think that. If you're doing juggling or hand-to-hand, you can do that in a venue with some height. But think about how do you need 2-day get-in? If you need a 2-day get-in, that's a big thing for a theatre. It really is, because it's time when they could be earning money and they could be it costs venues, and I'm not saying it's wrong to do it, but they need to know, do you get in on the day? Do you need a week? How big is the space you require? How big's your tech team? Are our dressing rooms big enough? Do you provide technical support? And then something about the sound and lighting, but don't go too overboard with in this first case with technical information. And then I put learning and wraparound activities, and that's what you can offer in addition for the venues in terms of workshops, talkback sessions? Can you do outdoor promotions of the show in the communities, in market squares, to promote the work? Stuff that we've done, me and Flora, when we toured a big show with Jackson's Lane. We got the performers in market squares and shopping centres and promoting the shows and handing out flyers. Can you do that? Can you give education? Can you do Q&As after the, they're quite easy to do. Are you able to offer any additional added value to what you're touring with? And then I think, I don't know if I mentioned this also, is that, well, I was going to say, oh yeah, no, beware your costings. Is that going to cost you more? Is that going to cost them more? Or can you include it as well? And then marketing and audience demographics, just let them know how you'll help to sell it. Don't just go, it's going to be your job as the theatre to do it. Tell them what you do on social media. Do you have mailing lists? Do you have established audiences that you can promote? Do you have links to their demographics? Can you say to them, we will bring in an audience that you normally wouldn't get? Tell them, give them the selling points of the show, because they're going to think about audiences. They'll go, well, how do I sell this? You need to say to them, well, we think this is a good avenue here. This is a good opportunity. We can help with this. And do you have a PR company? Do you have a PR person as well? What can you do to support the venues? Of course, when I say venues, it's not all about theatres. We're talking festivals. We're talking site-specific locations. Maybe I'm being a little venue-centric, but there's no point in me putting on... someone came to me a few years ago and said, I've got this great idea for a show, and it's about the identity of the female aerialist. And I said, well, that's great. And I said, I think you should make it. But apart from the female aerialists, who else is the audience? Do you know what I mean? Or if it's something so specific, how do you expand the demographic of the audience? And that's not to say that you can't get an audience for fans of female aerialists or male aerialists or aerialists of any gender at all. But the artist has to support the venue in that way. Contact details, basics, but give all the contact details. Maybe not everything initially, it's not needed, but just let you know who's the creative team, who's involved. Are there any names that people go, oh, I know that lighting designer, he's good, she's brilliant, she's a stage manager, she's, whatever. Let people know who's involved, who your creative team is. Do you have a dramaturg that's someone that's really well known? Do you have a director which has just had a brilliant show somewhere else? Just give people something to hang their coat on, basically. And what kind of capacity are you looking for? What kind of space you're looking for? Are you looking for a week? Are you looking for a night? What are you looking for? But just give us as much information within contact details and what you require as well. And I've just said other stuff. Sorry, Flora, do you want to chip in again? I'm just babbling on as usual.
Yeah, I think thinking about marketing and audiences, that's often something I feel artists sort of, it's because people sort of forget about it sometimes in their creative process, but really think about it as something as part of your creative process as well. It's not, oh, I'm just making this show and then, yeah, as Aid said, oh, it's up to the venue to make sure people come and see it. That's not entirely the case. You need to really think about, who you're making work for, and also how you're going to sell it to them in terms of like how you talk about the work. So often artists write about the work from their own perspective, and then they get very upset when marketing teams rewrite their copy to kind of present it to an audience and make it something that's understandable to them. So there's sort of two different languages slightly involved, and being aware of that and having, having an understanding of that and also not getting upset about it is a good thing. the other thing I wanted to say, if everything that Aid's saying here sounds very scary to you because maybe you're an emerging artist and you've never made a show and it's your first time or whatever, don't be put off either. That's, not everybody has a perfect product. Like Aid said, it is also about just making links, so maybe you make a dossier about your company, and it's like, oh, we're 5 graduates from this circus school, and this is our ambitions, and this is what we'd like to do. So tailor what you present to who you are and what you're doing and where you're at. So don't feel like you have to present this finished show version. That's kind of thought might be.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, and what I said at the beginning, like when you're asking what are you looking for, I'm giving an example here of a show, but you can say we're thinking it's a work in progress as well. So agreeing with Flora there that you might not have all this information, you might not have the technical information, you might not have the marketing information, and it may be a different kind of tour pack, but it would still be good to actually these headings to say what you think it might be heading at. So if you know it's going to be an aerial show, at least say it's an aerial show. If you say, at least if you've got a Facebook following, at least say it. But don't, as Flora says, don't. This is. I'm talking, I guess, a little more about finished products. But I also said at the beginning that you might just be looking for R&D space or support, and so I think it needs to be clear there. Exactly what it is what you're looking for as well. So, and then I've just said thanks, Laura. I just said other stuff. Do your research. Is the venue right for you? I said this earlier, but no use in approaching a 900-seat theatre if you want a 100-seat studio. But we do get that people come to us with shows and say that we've got. It happens a lot, actually. Happens a lot. We've got a show with, well, also financially, I get a lot of stuff. I think the problem with Jackson's Lane is because we seem to be bigger than we are to some people because we're a mid-scale space with a small scale capacity. But if someone from Spain says we've got 13 people on the road and we need per diems and flights and whatever, and we'd like to come to Jackson's Lane, and I go, well, we've got 166 seats, and you have to do the mathematics, and we and I'm not saying they've not done their research, but we sometimes find ways of things happening through getting other means of financial support. So the fact that we're small, I mean, we don't rely just on our own money. So for the London International Mime Festival, for example, which is a big festival, we have some big shows in terms of big for us and expensive shows, but it's because we have a partnership with them when they bring money and we have money, and there are ways of doing these things. If you come to us directly and you're bringing a show over from Argentina or whatever, the chances are we wouldn't be able to afford it. But so do your research on what the venues do. Do they have a track record of presenting this kind of work? I think I've said don't go to, what did I say? Don't go to a venue special. Don't go to the Bush Theatre. Again, that scattergun approach of going, I'll try every venue in London, and then you find one who's got a capacity of 30 seats and does folk music or whatever. It might happen. But find out what the venues do. Do they have a track record? Also, what is their, I didn't put this down, what is their lead-in time? How far ahead do they program? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? And I've just put the last thing about money, really, deals. And I guess this is similar across the world. I don't know. But there are two different, well, 2 or 3 or 4 deals. But there's somewhere we just pay you as an artist a fee for a show or a week. And if no one turns up, we pay you anyway. Well, let's not hope that happens. But if there's, you are guaranteed the money. And then there's some where you had to take the risk, which is a box office split, where we go, well, let's see what happens. And we I said they can range from 50-50 to 80-20 in the artist's favor, the higher it goes. And then there's something called guarantee against the split, where you'd be guaranteed a certain amount. And then if the split is higher, you get that as well. And then there's hires where you rent the venues, and that usually tends to apply to festivals, I guess. But if a venue offers you a rental, I'd be very nervous about doing that, because in my experience, they won't do so much to promote it. They'll take it regardless of the artistic program, just to bring in some money. And that tends to be the case. And I've just said costs, I'd be careful about putting your fees. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, Flora. It can just sometimes scare venues off. Scare venues off by putting an amount. If it says €4,000 a night plus per diems plus whatever, you might find they just close your document straight away. Do you have any thoughts on that, Flora?
A lot of European artists might not be aware of how touring in the UK works, and that it's a little bit, it's a slightly odd system. So it's not like in France where venues, you know, have big budgets, but it's more like so artists have to apply for their own funding to tour work that then is supplemented by income from the venues. So it's a slightly complex system that, yeah, it makes things a little bit trickier. It's different with bigger festivals. Bigger festivals would have budgets and they would just, you know, outright buy shows, whether that's in the indoor or outdoor sector. But sort of the, you know, regular venues that exist around the country is it's a slightly different system, and if you don't know anything about it, you might be surprised by the smallness of the fees that the venues can actually offer, but that is because that usually gets supplemented with Arts Council funding.
Yeah, so we at Jackson's Lane have a big relationship with Finland, for those that know us, and we get a lot of support from the Finnish embassy and the Finnish Institute. So it means we can present a lot of international work, a lot of Finnish work. And similarly with the Mime Festival, London International Mime Festival, they come with their own money. So as I say, sometimes on the outside, it looks like Jackson's Lane has got a lot of money for international work, but the story behind it is very different. And that is probably the case with a lot of artists. There have been exceptions, like the producers Crying Out Loud. I've had everyone from James Thierry to Racehorse, but they've got money from the Arts Council here to subsidise works brought over internationally. That's quite rare. But it does happen. But that's about artists finding a good UK producer. Flora is one of the few circus producers in the UK. I'm not suggesting you all go to Flora, but she's very good. And what else did I say? Oh yeah, that's my final advice to you. You can read that for yourself. And my little emojis at the end. I think the fourth one along, I thought might be something circusy led. I'm not too sure what it is. I think it might be a man directing air traffic. I'm not quite sure.
Would you mind reading it out loud, Aid?
Be nice. Don't pester people. Invite them to see your work and do your homework. Be nice. It goes a long way. The nicer you are, the nicer we'll be. So I've not quite finished yet. I think I'm still, am I sharing anymore? No.
Just you now.
I was also gonna.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I also wanted to say, I think there's a similar sort of thing with sometimes people approaching producers, which is very common. So people make shows, they don't invite producers or anybody.
Yeah.
and then they put on Facebook going, where's the producer that can help me sell this show and make a living? And it's a little bit the same. It's, you know, it's like, you know, make sure you sort of think about who you invite to your show first, and build a relationship with a producer, you know, especially like a lot of us who work in the subsidized sector. It's really not, you know, we don't make a huge amount of money out of what we're doing. We do it because we feel passionate about the work and because we have a good relationship with the people that we want to work with and for. So So, you know, if someone comes to me with this expectation of, hey, sell my show for me and make sure that I can pay all my artists, I get really scared. You know, I feel like, oh, this is a really big expectation you have of me. I haven't even seen your show yet. I don't know if it's any good. So yeah, invite me to your show first, and get, you know, let me get to know you a little bit, let me get to know the work, let me see if it's feasible to tour it, or, you know. So it's just, I think, you know, be aware that, you know, we can't always make things happen out of nothing either. So yeah, that's it.
I'm going to show two examples, and I got permission from both of them. One of these companies from 5 years ago. I didn't say why I wanted to use it, so I'm also, I hope I'm not being too mischievous here. I'm not going to anyway. But this was a circus theatre show that was sent to me. This is years ago, but I did say to them, could I share this? But I didn't tell them why. So I'm being a bit naughty here. But this is the tour pack, basically, and it was a circus theatre show, and it was basically this. I quite like the fact it's about a violent, comical, and poetic story of an androgynous street entertainer and serial killer, including a prostitute and an arsonist, and an endless trail of violence, hatred, and abuse. And it's kind of quite interesting. There's some juggling there and some aerial. Also, it wasn't all in the right format. And this was the pack. And I'm not going to, I spoke to them about it, and I said to them, this is not very, I gave them quite a bit of advice. And I said, can I use your pack as an example of stuff? But this is what it was, just a series of images with no information at all. Again, well, it should have, yeah, I could flip it around, but I did say to them I was going to use it as an example. So there you go. I would say don't use that, but here is, and that's probably the most extreme example, but oh, hang on. Here is what for me is the best example of a, can you see, am I sharing at the moment?
Not yet.
Not yet, hold on. Okay. This is a company we work with called Blind Gut. Well, we'd like to work with them more. Let's go right to the start. And this is a Finnish company we've worked with, and they're a little bit too big for us, but they sent this to us, and they did a work in progress at a showcase that Flora and Jackson's Lane produced called Canvas. And for me, this was from the absolute best tour pack I've ever received. And all the things that I was mentioning about a good lead image and the information, and I won't go through it. I'll make sure if it's okay, Kim, I'll share it with you. And Thomas in Finland said he's happy to. But it's a very succinct tour pack about, and it's very clear, it's very concise. And it does, those links click on to trailers, which is what I said, you know, that a PDF doesn't have to be so static, it can link to other things, and these things link to things externally. It's an amazing piece that unfortunately was too small for us. We were too small for it. But just very brief information about what it is, which really drew you in. And there you've got, you know, where the premiere is, you've got what it is. And, you know, this is also a Finnish company with English as second language, although most Finnish people's English is better than my own, I've discovered. But, and straight away, this is an amazing counterweight machine, which was the bit was too big for us, showing what the focus and the context is of the work. And it says 2 8-meter long trusses that reach from the back of the stage toward the audience. It's really clear for me as to what it is. Tells you just very briefly who they are, a little biographies. I mean, you know, less is more, as they say. And there's your performance info. It's everything you need. It's everything you need. Of course, you'll get more detail in the future, but this is, you know, and it can be performed. That's really important to me right at the beginning. The show can be performed twice a day with a 3 hours break. It's a big selling point to me. It's good to know, you know, what they're able to do. There's your stage, as I said, your stage technical requirements, they keep it brief. I'm guessing they're at the actual detail of it is going to be a lot more elaborate. And you get a stage plan. And then you get their credits. And for me, it's, I've used it as an example, lots and lots of you know, so I would say if you could rip that off, I'm sure they'd be very happy to do that. And I think I've finished, Flora. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, as I keep saying, you know, it's a little bit about where the show is at, whether it's a finished piece or if you're looking for support with the development of it. Are you looking for residencies or are you looking for co-production partners? And yeah, it's always, I guess it's the harder one to ask for as well, or it can be a harder thing to ask for than just a tour date, is to actually, you know, say, oh, you know, we're just developing this show and we want, you know, a week's work of, we want a week's residency, or, you know, but even that, I mean, put it in a timeline. What's your timeline for the creation of it? Do you have other partners, as Adrian said, is an important one, or is nobody else supporting it, you know? Yeah, I guess that's.
So this is our perspective. Sorry. It's like Eurovision. This is the version of the English jury, although Flora's not English. The UK German jury. But this is our perspective, and I think a lot of things that me and Flora are saying is kind of universal to venues, but it will differ. As I said, you know, but the information that is required in whatever format, I feel pretty confident that that's what you need. And as I said at the beginning, a lot of you probably know all this, but it might be good just to remind you. Just don't send me messages on private Instagram. That's all I'd request. But I think that's our presentation, Kim.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Well, we're going to say goodbye on the recording part, and we'll go to the after talk, and we'll stop recording. Did any from Flora and Aid, did you want to say anything in the recording before we leave?
I just like, it's been an absolute honor and privilege to participate in another session here. I think the one thing that, although I give a lot of talks in physical festivals around the world normally and presentations, I've done a good 4 or 5 times more in the last year. And I you know, it's actually one of the few positive things that's come out of it, is being able to reach out and share information. And I'd be my door at Jackson's Lane, or our door, is fairly open, and our contact details, we're happy to receive. We're not a closed shop, and if any artist would like to approach us, I say this every time, you're more than welcome to drop me an email, as Bex Anson knows.
Thank you so much. And Flora, do you have anything you'd like to add? I'll assume that maybe she's in an odd driving spot right now. And
she's got Milo in her back seat. So.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm just dealing with a slightly unruly toddler. I am still with you, but give me a minute.
Okay, well, we will stop the recording now, and we'll go to our after talk portion. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.